The strongest and oldest emotion of mankind is fear. And the strongest kind of fear is the fear of the unknown. You're an investigator standing in the way of diabolical cults and cosmic monsters from beyond space. This is Call of Cthulhu.
City and DG lead the way. New RPG systems every day. Dice roll, quick adventure calls. Walking through tabletops, golden halls. Masters of pen and paper. RPGs of every flavor. Talking about different creators. The choice of games is never greater. Come with us to games they run through. New, old, and interesting. Thank you all for listening.
Welcome in, everybody. Thank you so much for downloading this episode of Masters of Pen and Paper, episode 9. My name is DG. This is my main man,
Vinny, coming at you.
We're here to talk about Call of Cthulhu, and man, oh man, this is a gargantuan game. This is not rules light. I think we were sitting pretty here with the last few games. Those ones were rules light. This one is not.
Yeah, we're heading into the rules heavy zone.
This rules heavy, yes. Yeah, this one's got some girth.
Call of Cthulhu is on par with the D&D and the Pathfinder.
Yeah.
It's a big honking book, and there are multiple honking books.
And it's been around forever.
It's got a legacy with it, too, which is huge. And it has to, of course, be forwarded through all of its iterations.
Of course.
But we'll get into that later.
Of course, yes.
Call of Cthulhu is based on the works of H.P. Lovecraft from the 1920s and 30s.
Yes, and this game, with it focusing on the 20s, I found out that they refer to the 20s as the classic era. So
yes,
that's what we're in.
There is a classic era and a modern era of Call of Cthulhu.
Okay.
And we'll get into Delta Green and all that stuff too later on.
The rabbit hole goes deep. This one goes deep, man. It's crazy.
They dug too deep, some might say. It was originally written by Sandy Peterson and published in 1981. It was the first edition. Today we are talking about the 7th edition.
7th edition.
Yes, the most current one.
2014?
2014 was when 7th edition was published and released, yes.
For sure.
Call of Cthulhu was originally conceptualized as quote-unquote dark worlds, but that never saw the light of day.
Call of Cthulhu is a way cooler name.
It is a way cooler
so
name.
That was the correct marketing decision. Dark Worlds, I feel like, would have been buried. Call of Cthulhu is one of those things where you see it on paper and you're like, what's that?
Yeah. So Sandy Peterson contacted Chaosium about writing supplemental books to their already gigantic game RuneQuest. Which, spoiler alert, future episode incoming.
Yeah, we're gonna check that one out. Also, I tried to find out if this RuneQuest is the same as the RuneQuest I used to play on the internet way back in the day. Also affectionately currently known as Old School RuneQuest. And while I couldn't get confirmation on that, I mean, it seems by name alone, it seems like it could be related.
By name alone.
If I'm wrong, then reach out and you let me know and help correct me. And
please correct
we'll
DG.
We'll sort that out. Yeah, correct me, because I think that would be really cool if the RuneQuest I played was the same as that RuneQuest.
Yeah.
Chaosium. Then I could tell you that I've been playing TTRPG since like the late 90s.
Yeah. And you might have.
Maybe. Who knows?
Some of us have. I don't know. Sandy Peterson conceptualized the quote-unquote onion skin of interlocking information layers. In Call of Cthulhu, you play an investigator. And your investigator comes from everyday jobs.
Yeah.
And they are pulled into this world.
Just
and
some guy or some
they
gal.
are little hints have been breadcrumbed along the way for you to solve mysteries. And it's that's what this game's about. It's about solving mysteries and trying to bring the cults that work in the darkness to the light of day and show what's happening behind the scenes.
Right.
And it's really cool the way that comes around.
Totally. The game's not super combat focused, which is unlike the other games that we've gone through here kind of up to this point. It is very heavy on the mystery, the suspense, the story, the flavor. Like, that is where you find yourself in this game. There is combat. It does exist, but it isn't like the focal point, right? Like, you don't come together in a session to do combat. You come together, and if combat breaks out, then so be it, kind of thing. Most of the time, you're running away from combat because you don't want to die.
Yeah, because, hey, dying sucks.
You're just a regular person.
Yeah.
Facing off against an extra dimensional being.
Yeah. Who looks at you and your jaw hits the floor and blood runs out your nose and you go insane.
Poof.
Sandy Peterson develops the next 3 iterations of Call of Cthulhu, and then he kind of
he's like, peace.
Sidesteps and leaves it to pass the torch on to one Lynn Willis, who is the credited co-author of 5th and 6th edition. He unfortunately passed away. And then Paul Fricker and Mike Mason carry the torch on and bring us 7th edition. Ta-da!
And this is crazy because we're 10 years in now on 7th edition.
Yeah.
Most of the time with these types of games, right, they start talking about it's time to revitalize this because it's time to start selling some new books.
Yeah.
And 7th is still going strong.
Chaosium's funny that way as a company. They're big money makers. They don't spin them out like D&D or
they figure people are going to buy them anyways, so what's the diff?
Exactly. And
yeah,
people will. I mean, people do. There is a pardon the pun, but a cult following for Call of Cthulhu, right?
But
no, I'm just saying it's crazy how many people will sit down and gush over Call of Cthulhu. Oh, for
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the source material in this case is just too good. Right? Like, I mean, the world that exists, the monsters that are in there, the whole idea. I love the concept of 1920s America, right? Like, that has always really appealed to me. And so to be able to play those types of characters in this kind of world is it's just super cool. I think the story that you could create with this game is perfect. It would just be ideal. If you're a story maker, if you are somebody who really leans in on the role playing, this would be your bread and butter here.
And it really lends itself to the horror aspect of it. Which some people do care for, some people do not care for. Which is fine, right?
Absolutely.
Some people are not horror people.
Yeah, I mean, you could shave the edges off. You could shave the corners off of this if you absolutely had to, kind of thing, right? I'm thinking like, the being of it, at the end of the movie kind of thing. Like, that's kind of what we're talking about here, right? This thing shows up and it's got these bits about him that will destroy you if you look at it, and it's pretty crazy. Cool.
If you look at it the wrong spot, you will be sucked in and your mind will be cleaned right out. Yeah.
And you're gone.
So let's get into the bits and bobs.
Yeah, time to talk about the game itself. So we're talking about a Chaosium. You mentioned earlier the Chaosium basic role-playing system. Now, we just went over a Chaosium game not a Chaosium game, I guess. It's Chaosium inspired in Dragonbane.
Yeah.
And so I mean, we've got you can see where those similarities lie, because this game is a D100 game,
and it's a roll under. So
Yes.
we roll our D100 and meet or below is a success. And of course, there's degrees of successes and a crit and fumble as well.
That's right. In this case, you want to roll a 1, right? Like a crit is a 1.
A crit is a 1, and that is real tough.
That's difficult. Yes, that is double zeros on the 10 and a 1 on the 1. And so, but this game, not because I mean, you would be like, okay, well, if a crit is a 1, that would mean that the fumble is 100. No, the fumble is 96, 97, 98, 99, 100.
Yes.
So you should be immediately terrified when you see a 9 on that 10s dice.
Yes.
If it rolls 90, you're in trouble.
Yeah, because anything after that, that's a 50-50 loss. Just about like that's bad.
You're gonna have a bad time. So, so the we're back to another roll under game, which I mean, again, is this is a Chaosium thing, right? Like, that's kind of just their thing, and that's old school. Like roll under, that's an old school system.
Old school's always been roll under, as far as I know. Our GM this time around is known as the Keeper of Arcane Lore.
Yep. Love it.
And that is it's such a cool
I
title.
love that title. I think if I was the keeper, and that it is keeper for short. But if I was the keeper in this game, I think I would want that on like a placard or something, and I would put it in front of my my screen.
Of your screen.
Yeah, it would say DG, Keeper of Arcane Lore, and it would be maybe it'd even have lightning bolts on it to make it like extra awesome.
One on each side.
That's right. Yeah, I'd lean into it. Absolutely. Yeah. I like the flavor that's in there, right? So, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, the GM is your stereotypical GM. They're your referee. They're the story, the lore teller.
The game.
They do the stuff that help the game move along. And you are going to have your work cut out for you in this one if you're going to run these games. The book for the Keeper is a hefty one. And we're talking like near 500 pages.
Yeah, we have a Keeper's Handbook, or the Keeper's Rule Book, sorry.
Yep.
And I believe the Keeper's Rule Book is nigh on, 475 pages
like
or something silly like that.
It's hefty.
But that is all you need.
That's
that
right.
Is all the Keeper needs.
Yep.
You only need the Keeper's Handbook.
One book.
Or the Keeper's Book, because it has the monsters, it has all the rules in it, it has a nice, beautiful index that you can just run through and see where everything is. The Investigator's Rule Book. Now that is also roughly 300 pages long.
There's a lot going on. The group that you decide to bring into this game needs to be the type that can read through rule books with an S, because there's a lot, and the pages aren't like artistic and kind of foofy like they are for like Merkborg and some of these other games.
Oh, God,
we're talking 2 columns, like small font, written like a textbook all the way through. So this is a heavy lift.
Some might say it's like a 1920s newspaper.
Like a 1920s newspaper, exactly. This is a heavy lift. If you are not a reader, you're gonna have a hard time here. The onus obviously falls to the keeper. So you as the keeper are you got your work cut out for you. Don't let that scare you off. Dungeons and Dragons also has a hefty amount of books, but just so you are aware of what you're getting yourself into here, right? This isn't some flash in the pan, pull the book down for a Friday night kind of thing. We're getting into campaign level gameplay here.
This is commitment gameplay.
Yeah. We're going to play every Thursday night for the next 4 years to get this adventure down, right?
And if you guys don't die along the way, well, I'm going to make you at the end.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So pretty hefty commitment, but again, There's a lot here. There's got to be a lot, because with it being so story based, you need to have this stuff to draw off of. And the cool thing about this is the pages do lend themselves to that lore quite well. So as you're reading through, it does feel like you're kind of in that element.
Yeah, and there's a little asides and out of character boxes that kind of talk about certain things and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So skills are represented as a number, which it's a percentage of how proficient you are at something. So if you have like 75 in mechanics, you have like 75% chance of fixing whatever's wrong with something mechanical.
Yep.
So you roll your D100, anything under 75 and under, boom, you succeed. Not a problem. Our skill rolls have different difficulty ratings. So regular difficulty is whatever your skill is, that is the number that you roll against. We have a hard difficulty, which makes you roll half of that. And then an extreme difficulty, which makes you roll below 1/5 of that. So every skill has a number, a half number, and a fifth number box for you to fill out in your little character sheet. That makes it super easy when a regular difficulty roll is called for. You look, the big number is the regular, okay, roll that, done. If it's a hard difficulty, you roll it. It's a smaller number that says, here's the half one. Okay, that's the one I'm trying to hit. Perfect, done. We have our HP and sanity now. Mm-hmm. So not just HP you have to worry about. You have to worry about your sanity, because for those of you who don't know, H.P. Lovecraft and his Cthulhu mythos are very much on the mind horrors.
Yep.
If the investigators come up against something that they have trouble comprehending, they take sanity damage. And if either of your HP or your sanity are reduced to 0, you fall unconscious.
Exactly.
And die.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no joke. Like, and it's not even like you witness the actual monster at the end of the campaign. No, it's like the cultists performing a ritual and something appears inside of it. Boom, sanity check, right? Like,
it's coming across a mangled body of an animal on a trail. Mm-hmm. And you're not expecting it because you're just taking a walk through the woods. Exactly. That can be called for a sanity check. Like, it's crazy.
There's a lot going on in the various systems in this. And the other thing is, now you're actually managing 2 systems in your HP and your sanity, and if either one runs out, you're done.
Yes, if either one does.
If you lose your
your
HP,
investigator goes insane, he ain't helping.
He's toast too.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of managing 2 different resource pools in this regard. And so it's important to make sure that you've got that topped up at all times. There is no real advantage or disadvantage in the game. So, no. But what you can do is you can do something called push a roll, in which you would ask the keeper. So let's say I made a skill check and I failed that skill check. Like I'm trying to break a door down. So I go to break the door down, I fail my check, and I'm like, okay, I'd like to push my roll and attempt to break the door down by throwing the entire weight of my body into this door with no thought to my own kind of health, right?
Right.
If the keeper agrees, they can allow you to basically make another roll at it. You would make this description. It has to make sense. And you can do this check, and if you pass it, great. However, if you fail this check, you are now due to dire consequences. The keeper is going to provide you dire consequences if you fail it that second time.
If you fail to throw your body through that door, say, the keeper might say, okay, you take 1d4 damage to your shoulder and you have a minor injury now on that shoulder because you didn't get to break down that door.
Exactly.
Things like that. And it really puts the onus on the keeper to keep things going and keep his investigators in line with that.
Right.
Your investigators are not heroes. They are...
Yeah, they're just everyday run-of-the-mill ordinary folks. So putting them in harm's way, it hurts. And it hurts a lot.
Yeah, it would.
You're gonna have a bad time. You can't play this like D&D. You are not the hero. Right?
Exactly.
You're not the hero. You're just a guy. So I mean, we talked about this previously in other games like Merkborg, for example. You're not some superhuman powered hero here. It is very easy to die in this game. And that is honestly one of the biggest drawbacks that I have to it is the amount of time and effort you have to put into your character. And it encourages backstory and it encourages character development, encourages all these things. And for you to look the wrong direction, fail a roll and die because of it is very, very possible.
Yes.
Not die, go insane, but
yeah. It makes the player think about their character as a very fragile person.
Right, yes.
And they have to be very careful with that person, as any good investigator would be very careful going into situations, right?
Yep.
You're not going to just boot down the door and pull out your 45 revolver with you and pop off 6 rounds without knowing who's in there,
That's
what's
right.
happening, right?
Yes, exactly.
So speaking of our characters, let's do a little character creation.
Yeah, how do we build an investigator, Finn?
It's quite lengthy.
It's as is all things with this game. It is a cumbersome and lengthy process. I will say that the character sheets are really cool. I like the design of the character sheets, but there's a lot of things on that character sheet.
There is a lot of
again, it's
information.
hefty. Yeah, it is hefty.
It's nearly as hefty as the Traveler. One is.
Yep, because all of the skills. You got
the
between
skills.
the skills, the luck and the sanity alone is enough to take up a good portion of that.
You can use all of the skills.
That's right. Yeah. And you can grow them.
Yeah. Your skills have a base of like 5% or something like that, dependent on the skill. So you always can try a skill even if you don't have a good skill level in it.
That's right. Yeah.
So first off, we roll for our strength. Now that is 3d6 times 5 to give us our strength.
That's right.
Constitution 3d6 times 5. And it's times 5 so that it gets you into a percentile range instead of just 14.
That's right. Yeah.
12.
Yeah, exactly.
After that, we go on to size. Size is 2d6 plus 6 times 5. Both your height and weight are bundled into this number. So the higher the number, the bigger and more build
you're a brawny dude.
Yeah. And it helps with your HP and damage bonus as well.
Yeah.
Next up is dexterity, 3d6 times 5.
That's primarily initiative focused.
Dex is dexterity, yeah. We're still playing a tabletop RPG.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
You got to be able to move.
Appearance. Appearance is our charisma, basically.
This one was interesting. This was an interesting skill.
Yeah. 3d6 times 5. It basically is your looks, your social standing, not social standing, but your suaveness in talking to someone.
From Fabio to Quasimodo.
Exactly. And everything in between.
And everything in between.
And it helps mostly for social encounters, stuff like that. After that, we have intelligence, 2d6 plus 6 times 5. This is how smart you are. And it helps with certain occupations with skills and stuff.
That's right, yeah.
Power, 3d6 times 5. This is your force of will. and it governs your ability to conduct and resist magic. Your sanity is also equal to your power. So the more power, the more sanity.
That's right.
More sanity, the longer you can, hang out in this game.
You can hold out a lot longer.
You can hang out in this world of horrors without going insane.
Yep.
After that, we have education, which is a really cool one. So 2d6 plus 6 times 5 again gives us our education. And this is factual knowledge. And it determines how many occupational skills you get. Yep. It's also the skill that we use for know checks. Like, hey, keeper, would my player know this?
Yep.
Yeah, roll, see if you would.
Make a skill check. It gives you that ability to potentially get information that you otherwise wouldn't have.
Yeah, exactly. Last is luck. We have a luck roll in this. Throws 3d6 again, times 5. Mm-hmm. It is a type of resource that is used to augment dice rolls in the game. If it was a close to a successful roll, you can use it to kind of nudge it into a success. You
can spend them, but once you spend them, they're spent. They don't come back. They're gone.
And this might be an optional rule.
It is in the optional. It is in the optional rules. But the thing about luck is that let's say that you needed to roll a 50 and you rolled a 51. You could spend one of your luck points to succeed that roll.
Yeah.
But it does come with some caveats. So the caveats with the luck rolls, with the luck points, is that they cannot be used on sanity rolls. They cannot be used on luck rolls. They cannot be used on damage rolls, pushed rolls, or fumbled rolls. So all of those areas, you cannot use luck to push it a little bit more. And if you do use luck in order to succeed a check, it will nullify the skill check for the ability to do an improvement check. We've touched on some of this kind of with Dragonbane, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. Yeah. But all of those rolls and then the improvement check, it will nullify all of it. So you would want to use this sparingly, of course, but if it's going to make the difference between life or death, obviously that's a easy decision to make, right? You spend some of your points, you succeed your roll, you move on with your life.
The longer your character lives, the longer you get to play.
That's right. You can keep on trucking.
Yeah. So after luck, we decide on an age.
Right.
Now, you can be anywhere from 15 to 90.
The 90 would be an interesting choice. The old geezers rolling over.
That would be insane. So based on your age, there's a table for improvements and restrictions as it goes on, but there are too many for me to get into it.
There's a lot.
Because it's every 10 years you get certain additions, like the younger people are more dexterous, the older people more wise.
Right.
It's just...
This is going to be one of those games where a lot of the details, I mean, we can't fit them into the podcast. So a lot of these details, you're going to have to review the book to really get the detailed answers on. But just know that the age of your character changes how your character interacts with the world. Yeah. And that's kind of the gist of it.
This is by no means a how to play Call of Cthulhu podcast.
That could be a podcast on its own. This
is hey, Call of Cthulhu is a game out here. Here's kind of how it works.
Here's some information.
Yeah. So after we decide our age and our attributes are all rolled, we enter our half and our fifth characteristics, which there's a table, the really handy table that breaks down your rolls and what the halves and fifths of those are, rounded up or down or however they work.
Yeah, that one's on page 49 of the Keeper Guide if you would like to consult it, and it does go through numbers 1 to 100 and gives you all of the half and fifth values.
There we go.
Handy dandy for referencing in a pinch if you need it.
Yeah. So then we determine our damage bonus and our build, which is how, big, strong, muscular you are,
Strunk.
or skinny. So we take our strength and size and add them together, and then consult the table, and it tells you your damage bonus and build, and it tells you your damage bonus ranges anywhere from a -2 to a plus 5d6 damage. That
huge.
is insane.
That is huge.
That is huge.
Yeah.
This, of course, only applies to melee combat. So,
Of course.
fisticuffs.
Yeah.
Firearms.
Yeah, if you're shooting a gun, how strong you hold it doesn't really impact
That's
that.
right.
Although maybe there's something about like firing a large hand cannon and it flying out of your hands because you're too weak to hold on to it or something. I don't know.
There would be some house ruling going on around there for that.
You shoot the gun and it lands in the monster's face and concusses him.
and it fires backwards and hits your buddy in the gut and knocks him out.
Yeah, while you take the monster out with the flying gun, you do shoot yourself in the process and you are dead. Game over.
Yeah. So after that, we determine our HP, which is our constitution plus our size divided by 10, rounding down.
Because at this point, you are using percentages that you've inflated with the ×5. So now we've got to get those ×5s out of there so that you don't have a lot of HP.
So if you have a 50 and a 50 added together, that's 100 divided by 10. That's 10. You have 10 HP. And that's about how much as you get.
just to remind me here again, Finney, with that 10 HP, what would happen if you got hit for 10 HP?
You would suffer a major wound and you would go unconscious and die.
And then you'd be dead.
If you got hit for all of your maximum HP, you die.
You're done, just like that.
There is no coming back.
There's no. You don't even have a chance.
It's
at that
similar
point.
to like the System Shock optional rules in D&D and stuff.
And Pathfinder has something like this too, don't they? With the hitting them like the harder you hit them, the worse it is, kind of thing.
Pathfinder's is a crit drops you real hard.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, you're spending a lot of time. I found is flipping through the book here, that you're going to be spending a good amount of time running away. You're not standing there fighting unless there's no other option. If you have to fight, then you're fighting. But if you get away from this thing, it feels like that's default option is running away.
Because you are Sally the waitress from the shop down the hall here, and she had the curiosity got the better of her, and she came to investigate. You think she's going to sit back and fire off rounds at some horror coming after her? No, she's going to turn around and run.
I guess that depends on Sally's background, but yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah. After that, we're into movement. Movement is determined if both strength and dexterity are less than your size. Movement is 7.
Right.
If either strength or dex is equal to or greater than size, or all three of them are equal, your movement is 8. If both strength and dex are greater than your size, your movement is 9. Ooh. Now, that is all before age is taken into account.
Yep.
And age, starting at age 40, you get a reduction of 1 movement.
Right.
And every 10 years after that, it reduces by 1 more. All the way up to 80, which is -5 movement.
So this is what we mean by like the rules are really crunchy.
There's a lot of crunch in this.
There's a lot going on.
Some of this can be waylaid by saying, "Hey, I'm 30."
Yep.
All these old people rules don't apply to me.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot going on in this case, and so obviously we'd encourage you to read through the booklets Especially the keeper rule book, because it's going to break all of this stuff down for you.
Yeah.
Super important.
Same with the investigator handbook will do it as well. It's all investigator everything. So
yeah, depending on your role at the table, that might change kind of what it is. The last thing that we're figuring out here is the occupation.
Yes,
and the occupation's the classes, basically.
Kind of, yeah.
It's as close to classes as you're getting here for normal people. It's very
loosely a class, yeah. So occupation, there are over 100.
There's a lot, and you can customize your own if you'd rather go that way.
And you can make your own.
Yeah. So technically, there's endless occupations.
There is any occupation you can think of, you can be.
Was one of the occupations time traveler by chance?
No, you do not. You do not get to be a Time Lord. I'm sorry.
Damn it. I wanted to be Doctor Who.
Don't we all? Actually, that would be really fun to run a Call of Cthulhu game with doctors.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be really sweet.
Yeah.
I like it.
So they dictate how many skill points you are giving to increase your skills that we rolled earlier. It's usually 4 points split between 1 or 2 skill sets.
Yeah.
And then it gives you your credit rating, which is your cash on hand that you're either able to pull out and spend money on equipping yourself because God knows you need something.
You're going to need something to survive.
Yeah.
If you go out there with no money, you're going to have a real hard time.
At least pick up a shiv. Like something.
The bare minimum.
Yeah. And then it also gives you a number of contacts that your character would have made,
right.
as well as skills that pertain to that occupation. So these would be the skills that you are quote unquote proficient in.
Your proficiencies.
So like the collector would have skill points towards art somethings and what's the figuring out how much something's worth and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Appraising. Sorry. And then we're done. Ta-da! You have a character.
Hooray! Can I play now?
It sounds like a really long drawn out process, and it is ish. compared to the last couple systems that we've run, it is.
This is on par with Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like we said at the beginning of the podcast, this game, the rule sets are in line with D&D.
I think I could build a character 4 times faster in Call of Cthulhu than I could in D&D.
Only because you're not having to do the math between race, class, and all the backgrounds and other junk like that. So those components are being cut out, but they're being replaced with all the other things, the noodly stuff that's in here, the age, the occupation, the sanity checks, the luck rolls, they're on par. I don't believe they're equal, but if we're talking learning curve, I would say it's absolutely in the same ballpark.
Learning curve would be very similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, skill checks are made with a D100.
Yep. Yeah, and you could use like a literal D100 die, like those round D100 die. But the default is the 2D10 using the 10 die and the 1 die. That's kind of your standard, because there are times. Sorry.
Everybody will have that set if they come from another RPG.
Yeah, there's part of the typical RPG dice set, right?
Yeah.
There are times where you need to roll an additional D10 with the 10s on it, either for the positive or the negative. There's a rule that basically, I think it's if you do, like, if you have these ultimate fails kind of thing. That you roll another D10 to replace the 10s, and you take the higher result, and crits allow you to roll another D10 and take the lower result, or something along those lines, or something not quite that, but something along those lines.
Something along those lines.
I definitely read that in the rules, and I can't find it, but I know that was something that was part of it, in which using the 2d10 system obviously would be ideal in that case.
Yeah.
Because you keep the ones the same.
Again, 2d10s is the one that everybody's going to have. Not
You should
everyone's
have
going to
them.
have. Not everyone's going to have
No.
a D100.
But it is pretty cool to throw that big marble down on the table.
You mean roll it and let it roll forever
Like the cue
and
ball,
ever
basically.
and ever and ever? Yeah. You need a pool table just to roll a D100.
Yeah. But yeah, so with it being a roll under system, you've got your skill value. You roll your D100, you try to roll equal to or less than that. The investigator development, so I mentioned it earlier, but this does exist. So since we're talking about skill checks, when you make a successful skill check in the game, at the end of the session, so when you make a successful, let me go back. When you make a successful skill check, there is a little box beside that skill. You can check it off. And at the end of the session, you and the keeper, you roll 1d100, and if you roll higher than your skill value in that skill, you can improve it by 1d10 and then add that value to the skill point. So you're constantly pushing your skills forward as you're using them, right? As a component of, I used this, so the skill increased because when I did whatever it was that I did in the session there.
Yeah, this is where Dragon Bane grabbed this from.
Yeah. And so the other thing is when you get to 90% on a skill, you can now add 2d6 points to your sanity because that represents the discipline that it took in order to master a skill. So growing your skills is a good thing because it actually boosts your mind abilities.
Yeah. And that is very useful.
That's good. You want as much sanity as possible.
That's right. Okay, speaking of sanity and health, HP and living and dying, let's talk combat.
Woo! Fighting.
Fighting.
It's funny how in-depth combat is for how it doesn't feel like it plays a large part of the game, right? Like it's in there, but it really doesn't. It feels like it doesn't encourage you to fight things.
Call of Cthulhu is more about the tensions of mysteries happening, not so much the action of combat happening.
Yeah.
You will try to avoid combat as often as you can because combat is deadly, as we see with our hit point value of being like 10 or 15.
Yeah.
Right? So initiative is decided by comparing dexterity, and ranked highest goes first.
Whoever's the fastest goes first.
Last. Yeah.
Makes total sense.
Yeah. In the result of a draw with somebody that has both players have the same dexterity, the person with the highest combat skill goes next.
Because they strike first because they're
As they
better at
strike
fighting
first.
than you are.
That's right.
Makes sense.
Each round we have one single action to use.
Yep.
And a movement, I believe. So you can use this action to initiate an attack or using like fighting or firearm skills. So you can either punch someone or shoot a gun at someone. Perform a fighting maneuver, which is a special hand-to-hand combat thing that,
like a takedown.
Put someone in a headlock or,
Right.
Grapple him or something like that. You can use it to flee combat, very much.
Sure.
You can also use it to cast a spell because, hey, it wouldn't be a TTRPG without magic.
You gotta have magic if you're gonna play tabletop.
And you're coming up against cultists who use magic against you
That's
as well.
right.
So
if they can use it, so can we.
that's right. It's got to be fair.
That's right. Exactly.
And you can use this action to perform any other action that takes time and maybe even a roll. For example, picking a lock while other people are fighting.
Right. They're taking the heat while you're
It's a
getting
time
the escape
crunch.
rope.
Yeah.
In case you need it, there is a really helpful flowchart for combat on page 109 in the Keeper's rulebook.
Yes.
That kind of walks through and says, start here, do this, do this, do this, do this.
Yeah.
And it walks through. It's
what
pretty
happened?
helpful.
Did you do this or this? Yes, no. go whichever way it points. The flowcharts in this are very helpful.
Very helpful.
So melee attacks are resolved by using opposed skill checks. So a character that is attacked decides whether they want to fight back or dodge. So if they're fighting back, they each roll a D100 with their fighting roll or the skill or whichever. If the attacker rolls higher, damage is done to the defender. If the defender is higher, they successfully block the damage and get in a free punch of their own.
Right. Yes.
If at the same time, they don't have to worry about making their attack on their turn.
One of the other things that you can do here is you can take the dodge action. You can dodge that attack where the attacker would roll their fighting skill or their firearm skill, and then the defender would roll their dodge skill. And in this case, this is one of the few times where draws go to the defender rather than the attacker. But failures from both result in no damage at all. So if you're attacking, you have to succeed.
Yes,
you have to succeed.
You don't rely on them failing.
There's no squeaking by here.
Yeah. If you're gonna do it, you gotta commit. Yeah.
That's right. Yes, exactly.
Again, if a character is hit during combat and the damage exceeds their maximum hit points, they die outright. There is no pass, go, collect $200, nothing.
Yeah, you're out of here.
Speaking of dying, if the character's HP falls to 0 and they have suffered a major wound, the character immediately falls unconscious, and the player must make a constitution roll at the end of the next round and for every round thereafter.
Right.
If you fail a single con save, that character's dead.
You're dead.
That's it. Dead.
Do not pass go.
No.
Do not collect $200. You're done.
One failed con save.
Yep. That's all it takes.
And this is a roll under. I will remind you. A D100 roll under.
Yeah, the game is definitely not going to pull its punches, right?
It's pretty brutal.
That leads into some of the fun of it, though, too, right? Like, I mean, if you're going to be just an everyday Joe Nobody, I think it has to be that way. You have to be able to be taken out of the game.
You have
right
to
away.
be squishy. Yeah.
Now, with that being said, you're in 1920s, United States. There's lots of people in this country.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you lose one character, another one's finding a clue somewhere else, ready to go.
You got the pick of the litter, yeah. Now with dying, for as long as you succeed your constitution rolls, your character's still alive technically.
That's right.
If somebody were to come over and use the first aid skill on you and stabilize you, you're okay. You are stabilized. You are no longer dying. But medicine cannot be used to stabilize. The medicine skill does not stabilize. It is specifically for wrapping wounds and
bandaging,
applying medicine to it.
Yeah. Yeah. In the case of medicine, you're getting healing, but you are not getting revived.
Correct. Yes. Speaking of healing, first aid heals 1 HP.
Right.
Medicine heals 1d3 HP. And you can also take a full day's rest to heal 1 HP per day.
So, yeah, if you take a beating, it's going to be a slow rise. And as you're resting, things are happening.
Things are happening, but Call of Cthulhu is not a fast-paced game.
No.
It can be, but there are long times of just sitting, waiting, collecting information, collecting clues, stuff like that. It's not rushing from one combat to another, right?
Exactly.
Sanity rolls. Sanity rolls are very important in here. So they are D100 versus your current sanity points. The more sanity you lose, the harder this roll gets. The harder this roll gets, the more insane you get. The more insane you get, the less this character has fun.
the more likely you're heading out.
Yeah.
Straight jacket and a bunch of, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Down to the big house with you.
Yeah.
So they're kind of labeled differently. There's some checks are you lose sanity no matter what.
Right.
And some checks are if you succeed, you don't lose sanity, but if you fail, you lose like 1d4 sanity.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
we're not talking like big numbers, right? Like it's not going to wipe your entire stash.
No.
But they add up.
If you lose a certain amount, like 1/5 of your sanity or something per day of investigating, however long that is, and it was described in the book as being from anywhere from an actual day in game or from where a safe place to a safe place.
Right.
If you lose a certain amount in one day of playing, your character can have a sudden psychotic episode.
Yep.
Which is temporary insanity, which lasts for a very brief moment, but it kind of brings it to life that they're
it adds a little bit of flavor
they don't like. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I imagine that the keeper would have to have a pretty hefty role with this to kind of keep it in check too, because I mean the thing is, temporary insanity versus going nuts, like there could be dire consequences to you having this kind of episodic breakdown kind of thing. So those would be areas where the keeper would need to be working with the player a little bit to try and make sure that it's in line with the game.
Yeah, and there's a whole list of different things that go on the further down your sanity goes, and there's different phobias that appear and all sorts of. It's really kind of cool.
There's a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah. Sanity ratings are dependent on encounter, not by the creatures. So if you have a ghoul encounter is a sanity 0 on a success or a 1d6 on a failure. It is for one group or the whole group of ghouls. It's not because you have 6 ghouls, each one gets that roll. No, it's for that one specific type of creature. Again, magic does exist. Mm-hmm. It's a power roll. Yeah. And that's one of our attributes that we rolled earlier.
Yep.
The investigator needs to have these power points to expend magic points to cast a spell. They have to know the spell. They have to be able to recite the spell, which means read it. Mm-hmm. And they have to have the components at hand to create this spell. So typical RPG experience.
This is your run-of-the-mill magic experience in game.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense that it's in here, but part of it kind of feels like it's kind of added in because they felt it needed to have magic in there kind of thing. I think it likely came from the enemies, the monsters, and then they were like, you know what? The players have to have this ability as well. I don't know if I would play a character that could cast spells. I gotta say, I like the concept of Sally from the from the diner who grabs a gun on her way out because she saw some critter running across the road and needs to take care of this to save the world.
She's still in her uniform. She grabbed the nearest revolver and
off she goes.
She's off to save her little town.
Yeah, the magic kind of breaks that that little bit of connection that you end up getting with your character, I think. But I mean, all things vary. It is one of those things. It's just with it being so not in line with 1920s, 1930s America. It's a little immersion breaking, I guess.
Yeah, it's a tough sell for me as well with that, but it's part of the rules. So here we are.
And I mean, it is also worth mentioning that it's likely that your investigator doesn't live long enough to be able to even cast magic. So,
ta-da! And again, you can do anything in this game.
The rules get way more in depth than this. There is a lot going on in that book. There's quite a bit. And so if this is a game that suits your interests, I would definitely recommend at least picking up the Keeper's Book, flipping through it, checking out the rule set from there, and finding a group that might be interested in this.
I will say that there is a starter set, and
that's true.
It's got kind of a dumbed down rule set for beginners at it.
Quick start.
And it has a single player choose your own adventure style.
That's right.
Thing.
Yeah.
And I did play through it, and it was a lot of fun. It took me 2 evenings, I think, of not playing very hard, and I got through it, and I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
I ended up dying at the end, but it was a good fun dying.
I absolutely agree. I think that's kind of where that's where you're going to get your group together. I think asking your players to read 800 pages of rules is a heavy ask for a game that they're not already invested in.
Yeah.
So, leaning on things like the starter box or other areas like that, I think that's your ticket in to getting this game onto your table. But I mean, like the mythos in this game is just so good. The lore from this world is just so good that it might actually be worth reading those 800 pages.
I'm a fan of H.P. Lovecraft stories, and this hits something for me. I could sit down and play this game all the time and have 12 characters rolled up, ready to go.
Yeah.
Just grab one off the shelf and play them until they go insane or die, and grab another one and just keep going with it, because it's the mystery that's involved with it. It's the figuring out what that cult or what's going on in town here. Something's a little off. All the villagers are just being weird. And of course, this Call of Cthulhu is based around the Boston area of the United States, right?
The Miskatonic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's very steeped in history stuff. Like it's an actual place that you can go visit. The places that they talk about in these games are places.
That's right. Yep.
It's walking down the American road, like the back road in the summer in the blistering heat and humidity. Like it just hits something just right. I will say that you don't have to roll for everything. And this is mentioned in the book as well. If it's something that the average person can do day to day without working at it or trying, like driving a car, you can drive a car. You don't have to make an automotive check.
That's right. Yeah. It's kind of standard practice.
That is for intense situations. Like
driving your car through the ditch and back up onto the road again.
Driving your car while another car of cultists tries to ram you off the road.
Exactly.
Stuff like that. Yeah. Extreme cases of not regular driving. That's where these things come into things.
You have to lean on your skills in order to complete whatever it is that the challenge is.
Yeah. And that's about it.
That's about it. Yeah, the game. I mean, it's a very interesting game. I agree with you. I think if this got put out onto the table, I would definitely be interested. I would create the character. I'd lean into it. But like I mentioned, with the books being huge, and there's lots of them too, right? We're just talking about the rule books. We're not talking about any of the add-ons, any of the modules, any of the other stuff that exists in the world of Call of Cthulhu. There's lots and lots and lots of books. There's lots and lots and lots of lore, and there's reading. I think you could literally start reading and never end reading the amount of stuff that fits into the game. So in my opinion, you really need a niche group for this, because you're going to have to sell them on why they need to read all these rule books instead of just picking something off the shelf. Now, personally, if it were me, I think the way that I would get my players into this is I would play something like Arkham Asylum or some of the board games that exist that have the same kind of flavoring, the themes that are in there. And then once we've kind of got that HP Lovecraft vibe and everybody's like, yep, we want more from this, then you could easily pivot from that into like, well, why don't we explore these characters and build them backstories and start building out stories of what these characters would do that we're playing. And then that would be how I would probably pull them into it. I think it's a heavy ask to show up with these heavy rule sets and be like, hey, so I need you to read these so that we can play this game on Thursday.
Yeah, I agree. It's a commitment game rather than a sit down and visit game. And there's nothing wrong with it.
Nope. It has its place.
It has its place, yeah. My favorite things about this is that the roll under system is it harkens back to the early RPG days, and I really like the roll under system.
I like the roll under system too. I do. I think
it feels nice.
I don't know. Maybe I like it because it's just different. Yeah. But I do like the roll under system. It's and as somebody who rolls a lot of ones, maybe I would be better at a roll under system than a roll over system, even though I know that I would then just roll a lot of 20s. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's the way it is. Yeah. Another one of my favorite things about this game is that it focuses on role play and the story and the mystery rather than tactical combat or finding the big bad and going from battle to battle and working, strutting your stuff and be like, oh, I'm here to save the day. And like, come on. Yeah. I just want to be Joe Blow from the general store behind the counter, grab my shotgun off the wall and go shoot some cultists.
Go for it. Yeah, I agree. I like the concept of being just a normal person. That's there's something refreshing about it, right? There's no funny like oh, I'm gonna leap into the air and fly for 50 feet. No, like you're just a guy. You got 2 feet and a heartbeat, man. Like
that's right.
You're just rolling with it.
You could be a gumshoe for all you know, right? Like or a PI or something like that.
Exactly.
That's the closest thing to a hero you get here.
But I think that's going to wrap Call of Cthulhu up for us. And I noticed that we have a simple question here in the post-pod section of the show. And that would be Finney, in your wide range of games. Now, your range of games is larger than my range of games, so mine's going to be a little bit easier. But what would you say is one of your absolute all-time favorite weapons out of one of these games? And I'm going to say one of. I'm not going to make you say the best because I mean I don't know if I could even choose that, but one of your favorite.
One of my favorites. I've always been a fan of like the flanged mace.
Oh, okay, yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Not or the typical Morningstar, right?
Right.
Something that's not your typical, like everybody grabs the long sword.
It's not a sword.
Right.
It's not a sword.
Everybody grabs the long sword. Everybody grabs the warhammer.
Yep.
Nobody grabs the mace.
That's right.
Nobody grabs the Morningstar.
Poor clerics left behind with their thwacky weapons, right?
Exactly. That's always been one of my favorites to just fall back on. Them and a two-handed weapon, like I really enjoyed my glaive when I played with it.
Right. Oh yeah, glaive's solid with the reach.
When my character had that glaive, that was a lot of fun to play with that.
Nice.
What about you?
I gave this a little bit of thought, and I think where I land with a favorite weapon, I agree with you. I like the great weapons too. And most people, when they go to a great weapon, they go to the great axe because it does the most amount of damage.
Most damage.
But I gotta say, I played a paladin who used a greatsword, a two-handed greatsword, and that was just so much fun. It was fun to swing this like comically oversized two-handed sword. And it just, I don't know, there was just something about it. So I would say that that's probably it. I'm a lot like you. I don't go for most damage. I go for what fits that character the best. And I do agree. I think the long sword, the short sword, the rapier, these are overdone in the characters. We gotta spread the wealth. I do want to make a standard character that just uses a club, right?
Yeah, that would
but
be
I
fun.
want the club to be like something a little bit more fancy, but I want to just be boring, right? Like I said in a previous podcast, I made a character that was supposed to like throw hammers. I've always leaned into things like that where they're a little bit different. I don't want to be just like everybody else. Yeah, I want it to have a little bit of flair.
Yeah, because it's your character. Why wouldn't you?
Can't be boring, man. That's not how it works. So
that's how
don't get me wrong. A lot of my characters do get the long sword, the short sword, the rapier, just because it's easier. I've got a lot of characters with just a longbow. They just fire off arrows. But I mean, it is what it is. If I get a choice and it makes sense, I'm going with something a little bit off the wall.
Yeah. Runner up would be the las gun from Traveler.
Ooh,
I really like
choice.
the las pistol. It's
pew pew pew.
Yeah. Blow a hole through somebody. Yeah.
And of course, who could forget the femur from Merkborg?
The femur, yes, of course. How could we forget the femur?
How could you forget the femur? That's it. That's all for us on episode 9. Thank you everybody so much for listening. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can do so via email by emailing us at mastersofpenandpaper@gmail.com. You can also find us playing live on Twitch and on YouTube. We play on Sunday nights, and typically we play Pathfinder on Wednesday nights. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/@DadGamingOnline or twitch.tv/DGOnline. As well, you'll find the links for the Discord server in the description below if you would like to get in touch with us or you'd like to chat with us outside of the podcast. You can simply just click on that link to the Discord, join us, and come chat with us directly right in there. We've got a tabletop channel. It's there. It's ready. We've got posts in there. It's a lot of fun.
It's primed. It's ready. Please fill it up.
It's ready to go. The next episode is going to be one of our behind the screens, mailbag style episodes. So stay tuned for that one. If you have any scenarios that you'd like to share with us or any just kind of tabletop moments, go ahead and send us an email. One last time, that email address, mastersofpenandpaper@gmail.com. That's it. That's all from us. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. And we will see you or you'll hear us on the next one. Thank you so much for listening.
Take care, people.